would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California. Member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. The plague has once again hit my house. I have no idea. It's like my house is a magnet for this stuff. 2 of my sons are down. I am following quickly behind, trying to keep one of my sons sequestered off to protect him from this plague. But here I am, good enough to get a show done for you. Hope it's a good one. I think it is. We got a couple interesting topics today. As always, the best way to get in contact with me is through the website. The website is therebelbroker.com. You can click on the contact link in the menu bar. Send along any ideas, suggestions, observations, or questions that you might have. Click the big red button at the top titled Take the Survey to Support the Show. Give the same email address both times you're asked. Answer a few demographic-style questions. You'll be achieving 2 goals. 1, you'll be helping the show, which is great, and I deeply appreciate it. Thank you very much to those who've done it. 2, to, at least in some small way, thank you for going through the trouble of doing that. We are doing a $50 Amazon gift card drawing for folks who have jumped through those hoops for me as a little thank you. We've given out $250, $300 so far, and we do that every month. So we'll be doing that again this April, which is right around the corner. So jump in now and you get yourself in for a potential drawing of a $50 Amazon gift card. Congrats to the folks who've won. Good luck to those who are still waiting to win their $50 Amazon gift card. Anything else in sexy news? You can join the Rebel Underground, which is a way to get access to exclusive content. The best way to do that is to text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. The other way is in the show notes of all shows since yesterday will be a button. And if you click it, you will be given the opportunity to join the Rebel Underground. Okay. I think that's it. I apologize if I sound a little out of it. I have taken quite a bit of the cold medicine stuff to keep the nose from getting stuffed up and to keep the throat from hurting. I can feel the fog closing in. Hopefully it won't screw me up too much. All right. So one thing I wanted to start off with for today was another revisit. Not a big one, so don't panic. But it's coming at the whole interest rate thing from the other side. And maybe it's just because folks look for the easiest explanation for things or assume cause and effect relationships that don't seem to really hold any water. But as I said yesterday, we're not at a point where the interest rate is not at a point where it is the deciding factor for buyers. I have not seen any buyers deciding not to buy because of any recent changes in the interest rate. We aren't even at the top. We aren't even at the top of the 52-week spread for any of the interest rates. In fact, we're a halfway decent chunk below them. Even when we were way down or way up at the tippy top, when we were setting the 52-week highs, people were still borrowing as much as they possibly could. We were not seeing a huge dip, but yet we still see these articles about the market's going to suffer because of interest rates. Well, now we finally have one going the other direction because mortgage rate applications stayed flat even as rates dropped to the lowest point in 3 weeks. Now, this came out on the 29th, yesterday, from CNBC. As always, there will be a link to this article in the show notes, so feel free to run on over there and check it out at therebelbroker.com. But we're not seeing it go either direction, right? So if my theory holds water, and I think it does, if you look back at the history of buying practices or buying numbers versus interest rates over the last 52 weeks, there doesn't seem to be any reliable correlation between the two. So even when the rates have gone really low, we haven't seen these huge jumps in new purchases. And I'm saying that way for a very specific reason, because refinances are a completely different game, right? And refis are actually relatively low right now too, and a lot of banks are actually upset about that because they're not making any money on them. But I just wanted to point that one out because we're not seeing it affect the equation from the other side. When interest rates are low, we're not seeing huge jumps in applications, right? Now, at the same time, we're saying that, it's also interesting to point out that according to the National Association of Realtors, the pending home sales index increased 5.5%. Now, remember, there is kind of a correlation here. The application part usually will predate data like this by just a little bit. But this is, I suppose it's good news. The pending home sales index increased 5.5% in February, up 2.6% year over year, which is good news. I mean, it's good to see that the market's moving. But again, at the same time, all we're seeing are dramatic increases in prices. And we really, and I realize that this is a drum I've been beating to death, we need to come up with strategies that address the inventory side. If you've got a strategy to get current homeowners to really want to sell their house, I am all for hearing it. I say go for it. And you know what? There are things you could do. You could reduce transfer taxes in counties and cities that have them. You could do a moratorium on them, right? There's tons of different things you could do that would encourage that activity if you're someone who's really into government programs to make things happen. But what's interesting is you won't see those suggestions made because the only people that would benefit is you, right? There's no lobby. There's no huge pool of contributors that benefit from it. So unfortunately, when it comes right down to it, you tend to see things that do not exclusively benefit consumers. If something as a side effect will benefit consumers, great. I'm sure that'll turn into a bullet point that everyone wants to point out. But the reality is whenever you find a scenario like this where the winners are really only consumers, right? There's big banks aren't able to leverage that into more money. But what's really funny is that that's exactly what would still happen, right? Because if we suddenly had more, but no one wants to look to the next step, right? There's only the proximal effect. No one wants to look at the trickle effect or the mushroom effect that happens, or the ripple effect that goes through the marketplace when these things happen. When a home gets sold, all kinds of other things happen, right? There's inspections that have to get paid for. There's all these other things that have to happen. There's someone who has to get a loan to buy that house. So, I think it would be a great thing. It would be a great thing if they put a moratorium on all of the costs related to creating inventory, whether those are costs relating to an individual who wants to sell their home, or whether it's a builder who is trying to decide whether or not it makes more sense to him to dedicate himself to building a commercial property this year or a whole bunch of residential properties. So there's that. Now, another interesting piece of data today, again, this one's also from CNBC, story that came out yesterday on the 29th. Home builders struggle to fill jobs, quote, Americans don't want. I think this is an interesting one. It shows that since we are seeing discussions about how we're not getting enough workers to build homes, that indicates that the other data that we've seen. And let's go down that list real quick. We've talked about architectural billings, up. We've talked about wood framing, lumber costs, up. Consumer confidence, up. We saw permits a while back were up. All great things, but it's when the actual actions take place, and this is what we're seeing. Outside of Denver, it's 15 minutes from downtown. This is one particular place that absolutely needs more construction. Remember, we've talked about how there seems to be no problem with getting an apartment in Denver, but getting into a position where you can purchase a home has been ridiculously difficult. My understanding is that's still the case in Denver. But they are having trouble holding on to the workforce. According to this, Homes here take about 2 months longer than normal to build, and in some cases, contractors are doubling their wages just to keep workers from skipping to the next site. That's the backdrop as potential home buyers in the Mile High City pile up and the supply of homes for sale continues to fall. Fierce competition pushes home prices higher at one of the fastest rates of any local market in the nation. So what we've got there is another side to an interesting problem where when we do see home builders step up and start wanting to build more homes, now they're in some areas running into labor problems. And I know that this isn't isolated to Denver. This is something that has also happened in some areas of New York. I've heard about it happening in some areas of California. So there seems to be fertile territory in terms of job opportunities in construction right now, which is great. That's fantastic, right? I would love to see huge numbers in terms of new employment in construction. Remember the last time we talked about employment numbers, which was last month, construction was one of those areas that saw a lot of growth when we saw some improvement in the types of jobs that were getting filled out there in the world. Let's see. What else did we have? Especially the fact that it seems like we're at capacity at such a low level of actual absorption, according to the CEO of Thrive Home Builders, a mid-sized privately owned builder in Denver. Quote, in previous recessions when we recovered, we tend to see prices go up and labor starting to get tight after we've recovered to at least an average absorption. He noted that Denver's average sales rate would normally be about 15,000 homes per year, and the market is now operating at just over half that rate. So that was another piece of data I thought was amazing. Denver, on average sales, would be about 15,000 homes per year. The market's operating at half that rate right now. So their ability to live up to just what the average isn't there. And if that doesn't feel like some bizarre artificial thing, I mean, it's not, right? Because they are obviously just creating what they're creating. But you realize, well, wait a minute. If everything tends to gravitate more towards average anyway, what happens to all the prices of homes when we start to achieve that average again, when we start to create 15,000 homes per year? That's kind of interesting math, and the kind of math that could definitely affect any estimation. Because remember, all these estimations right now, all the things we talk about, all the numbers we throw around that relate to how do we anticipate what's coming on in the market? How much do we expect to make in our investment over the next year? What are the odds of good things happening for someone who wants to invest in the real estate market? Well, what we're seeing here is a scenario where the success is built on the shoulders of building less than half the number of homes that would normally be created in a year each year. That's a little bit concerning because you can almost bet that's not going to be a long-term thing. It may be for a year, maybe 2 years, maybe even 3. But at some point, these things tend to balance out. Some smart builder out there realizes, whoa, no one's jumping in on this demand. There's this huge call for stuff. And you know what's funny? When I read this earlier today, what reminded me of was Risk Game with Mr. Greenberger's book. Remember that? Now, what was his first big success? It was recognizing the demand for commercial space that wasn't huge, right? It was like just renting out small spaces, small offices. And that was maybe more of a subtle thing. This is a right in your face, smacking you across the cheek kind of a problem, where clearly there is such a demand for homes that if you go out and you build them, folks are going to buy them. And if you can overcome this work problem, if you can overcome this labor problem, and these guys start demonstrating to other builders in the area how much money they'll be able to make off of these, you would think there's going to be a big jump in the number of projects that start, the number of homes that get built, simply to meet even just the average level of demand that we see in Denver. So when you look at it that way, there's really no surprise that we're seeing prices where they are when we're operating at half the average number of homes created in that specific area. All right, folks, we'll be back in just a minute with a super important one. And this isn't some goofy tease. You know, I don't do that. I don't do the goofy tease. I don't do the made-up tease. There is a huge scam floating around out there, and it's not one of those casual, might cost you a little time, might cost you $50 to $100. This is gigantic, and I want to make sure to warn you about it. We're going to do it right after the break, so don't go away. We'll cover it right after this. Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner-broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909. Welcome back, everyone. I gotta come up with a new ad. I realize that now. I've had a couple of people tell me it sounds a little bit hokey. Yeah, I guess maybe it does, but there you go. All right, so let's jump in. This is a big one because it's a nationally occurring thing. So no matter where you are, this could be an issue. But it's an email scam that's targeting the real estate industry, and it is the potential impact is huge. So this isn't just me telling you, watch out. This is me telling you, watch out for even stuff you may get directly from your real estate agent or stuff you believe you just got from your escrow officer at title. Because there is some hinky shenanigans going on, and this is cases where tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars could end up in the wind. And I am guessing none of you would like to see, if you're putting $50,000 down on a home, I'm guessing that you would not like to see that $50,000 end up in someone else's pocket. It's in the wrong pocket. Now, this is from Como News. I don't even know where these guys are, but in any event, I guess Seattle is where that is. And it's a topic that's interesting because I have gotten these emails. I have gotten emails that claim to be from real estate agents telling me, here's the escrow information on the deal, all this other kind of stuff. And I know I'm not involved with that realtor. And I'll go and I'll actually Google the name of the realtor and discover that, yeah, that's a real realtor. The signature is correct in terms of the information that was in the email. In terms of the signature, right, that a real estate agent has at the bottom of their email. So everything looks copacetic. Everything looks correct. But here's the problem. Somehow, these scammers are getting some very specific information relating to the transaction. And they're getting away with thousands of dollars and potentially hundreds of thousands. Let's see. Quote, these scammers get into your email account, said the organization's president, Sam DeBoard, who's with the Seattle King County Realtors Association, I'm guessing. They find your consumers' information. They know about their transactions, and they know when the closing date is. Now, that's very interesting because I'm not sure how they'd be getting that information in a lot of different cases. But the point is, you need to, when you're dealing with huge chunks of money, you need to be careful. Now, let me spell out what's happening. Because this may not even be directed at you specifically. You may get an email from your realtor saying, here's the info you need, or here's the person you need to contact to do your wire transfer for your funds. Now, I encourage my clients to do a wire transfer, but I've always encouraged them to not exchange any information about a wire transfer over email. I always suggest that they call the title company directly and only handle that wire transfer information exchange directly with the person that they have called at the title company. I'll be honest, it's not because I was some wizard who knew that this kind of a scam was going to come along. I just never liked the idea of account numbers and other types of things going out over an email. And while even phone conversations can be intercepted, that's going to be far less likely than email interceptions. So that was one reason why I always went that route, and why I'm going to continue to suggest that that's what you do. And if ever you get a request to transfer funds, to provide account numbers, or are given the account information via email to start a wire transfer from your bank, call the person who you're going to be sending that money to. Call the escrow person and verify that data, because you could be in a situation where you're being scammed. The email could be the correct names of the people you expect. What they're doing is creating email addresses under different accounts where the name is correct, the specific name they're giving you, and the name that might be at, whatever, at gmail.com. If you're working with John Smith at XYZ Escrow, the email address may say John Smith at Gmail or John Smith at some version of XYZ Escrow. They're apparently even creating domain names that are close to what the business is, so that you'll miss that. So one way I do this, and I'm going to try to give you some tools here, right? I don't usually like to just dump info on you without at least giving you something you can use. And let's try that here. So I know in my email client, for my client and for the participants in the transaction. Now, the system I currently use will prevent this from happening as long as folks use the system that I have that exists in between as a data exchange medium, right? Because when I create those accounts, it's to a specific email address. So if anybody tries to do anything from a different email address, none of that's going to go anywhere. It's not going to work. And they don't have the logon for that middleman that I use. But it's like, let's say you don't have one, or let's say you have an agent who doesn't use one of these services that sits in between to let you securely transfer data and forms and other types of things back and forth. There's a feature I use in my email client. Now, I happen to use a Mac, but I know Outlook does this, where you can designate specific email addresses as VIP email addresses. Or you can use a rule to give it a certain color. Do that. When you're in a transaction, create a rule and add all of the emails of the people involved, whether it's the title company people, your real estate agent, your lender, all of those folks, so that whenever you get an email, you can visually see immediately that that's the exact email address of that person, because it's the right color, or because it's been labeled correctly, or it's because it's been given the right priority, or whatever rule you want to set up. I think that's a great safety net, so that you'll get an instant visual clue that when it says John Smith on there, because remember, you don't usually see the email address. And that's kind of what these scammers are hoping for, is that you see the correct name, and they have, through their own methods, discovered the name of your escrow person, the name of your real estate agent, the address of your property that you're trying to buy or sell, and they know the amount of money ultimately that's going to be asked for from you. So all of the numbers and all the data seems to sound correct when you get that email from them. But by doing this, it's just another nice added level. Now that would be item number one for me, to make sure that you're doing that. And then item number two would be anything that involves your money. You have a real live conversation with the person who is asking for that to happen. Don't call the phone number that's on the email address. Call the phone number of the escrow company that you know is correct, the one you would have gotten at the very beginning. And when this offer was first accepted, before any information went into the databases about when your close date was supposed to be, or who your escrow person was going to be, or the address of the property, before any of that, you would have gotten from your agent or from the escrow company itself the data on the person who's going to be servicing your account, who's going to be working as your escrow coordinator, as your escrow officer, all that kind of wonderful stuff. So just at that point, set all of this stuff up. It's the safest time to do it. And then just make sure that you double check. And anytime money is involved, right? I'm anal retentive when I'm online. So I'm one of those people that has a different logon and password for every single site that has anything to do with my money. Each one of my banks, different logon and password. Each one of my credit cards, different logon and password. So it's never one of those things where if any one of those things gets compromised, they can get access to my other accounts, right? Use that same sort of dedication when you're dealing with a transaction for real estate, because there's a lot of reasons why you want to make, and there's good reasons to do it this way, even if this trouble didn't exist. First, the movement of funds makes your transaction happen. So even if you get an email that says, here's the information you need, the account numbers you need to make your transfer, call and double check. Verify each and every one of those digits. If you do it incorrectly, if one digit is incorrect, if one digit has been transposed with another digit, it could end up screwing up your closing. It could end up delaying your closing by one or more days. So it's just a good thing to do, even if you're totally not afraid of this. But remember, the failure points aren't even necessarily you. The failure point could be your real estate agent, who then forwards on to you what they believe to be a valid request for wire transfer information. So the forwarding of that would have their email address in it, so it would be colored correctly. So you need to understand that even though something may have come from your real estate agent, and particularly if it does, right? Because your escrow coordinator, your title company person, your escrow officer, all those people should have your info. So if something is coming through another party to the transaction, whether it's through your lender or whether it's through your real estate agent, that shouldn't be the way it happened. They should have contacted you directly. And just don't assume that any of these other peripheral people are verifying that the email that they're forwarding on to you is actually a valid email. Let's see. And I'm not, unfortunately, I'm a tech guy, so I get how email works. I understand DNS servers. I get it. But I always hate these articles that discuss these scams but give very goofy explanations that are not techie. I want to know how these folks are getting access to email exchanges. The only way they could do that would be actually having access to someone's email, and they don't give any good explanation on how that's happening. But here is an example that I think kind of brings it home. All of this typical scam is likely how Paul Strohmeyer and his wife, I'm quoting the article now, lost their waterfront dream home last year. As closing day approached, they got last-minute closing instructions by email from the title company. The names and information were all correct, but the email was not from anyone at the title company at all. A title company imposter who had all the right information was trying to get them to wire their closing money to a new account in Texas. Had they not called this title officer to ask questions, he would have lost everything, including all of his money. And this was a all-cash transaction. Quote, unfortunately, I've heard of a situation where a buyer lost the entire purchase price in a cash transaction. And this is one of those things where my God, how would you even manage that? Imagine, my situation, right? Because as I move forward with my plans, I'm going to have a good chunk of change to put down on a new property. I can't even imagine what my reaction would be to discover that I had been scammed into transferring, say, $300,000 to the wrong person. Oh my God. It actually makes my innards hurt just a little bit to even think about it. So just as a buyer and as a seller, just make sure people are aware of this, right? Sadly, real estate agents tend to be among the most ignorant about this stuff. So I want you to own the process of alerting the folks involved in this transaction to this, and then follow these rules I've suggested to give yourself the best chance of avoiding this problem at all. With just one phone call to a live person, you can avoid the possibility of losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I think that's a good thing. And I think this advice has paid for itself. I think today, without question, is a winner of a day in terms of me giving you more value in the information we've shared today than what it cost you to listen to the show. So you're welcome. I feel that confident about today's show. All right, folks. As always, thank you very much for listening. I really do appreciate it. And I will talk to you all next time.